My wife cheated after 7 years and tried for 2 years to win me back. I used to think 7 years meant something solid, not perfect, not easy, but solid. We lived in a quiet American suburb where people waved from their porches and complained about lawn care like it was a real problem. I had a good job with steady promotions, the kind of salary people in our state called lucky. I did not gamble with money. I did not waste nights at bars. I came home. I built a life. And I believed I was building it with her. My wife liked nice dinners, weekend trips, small surprises, and I liked giving them to her. Because when she smiled, it made the pressure of my work feel worth it. I was the type who kept lists in my head, bills paid early, car maintenance on time, birthdays remembered. I thought that kind of order would protect a marriage. It is embarrassing to admit that now. But back then, I really believed love plus effort was the whole equation. Our home had the kind of calm routine people envy from the outside. Weekdays were simple. She worked part-time and talked about switching careers. I never pushed. I told her we would figure it out together. Nights were dinner, a show, sometimes a walk. Sometimes we just sat and planned. A vacation, a bigger kitchen, maybe a dog. We did not have kids yet. We said we were waiting for the right moment. I told myself we were being responsible. And I told myself the right moment would come once work slowed down. Work always has a way of promising it will slow down later. And later never arrives. The first time I noticed something was off, it was so small, I almost laughed at myself for caring. She started checking her phone like it was fragile, like it might break if she held it too loosely. She would tilt the screen away from me without thinking, not fast, not dramatic, just a slight shift, like closing a door softly, so you would not notice it had closed at all. I told myself people get privacy cravings. I told myself I was tired. I told myself I was being unfair. Then she started leaving more. Often in the evenings, not every night. Just enough to feel like a new habit was forming. She would say she needed air. She would say she was meeting a friend. She would say she had to help someone with something. It always sounded reasonable, because she learned what reasonable sounded like. She would pick simple explanations, casual words, and she would keep her voice light, like she was doing me a favor by not making it complicated. I would ask where she was going, and she would answer, without details, which was new. Because for years we shared details like they were nothing. We shared grocery lists. We shared dumb stories about coworkers. We shared the small things that make you feel like you live inside the same world. One Thursday, she grabbed her purse at a time that did not fit. After dinner, after the dishes, after we both settled into the couch, like she waited until the last second to remember she had somewhere else to be. She said she forgot. Her friend needed her. She had promised. She kissed my cheek, not my lips, and I felt that detail land in my chest like a pebble. It should not have mattered, but it did. I asked her which friend. She said the name of a woman I knew, someone she had known since college, someone who had been at our wedding, someone I had joked with at parties. It sounded safe. It sounded familiar. It sounded like the kind of answer that ends a question. She left. I sat there, and I tried to watch the show we had started, but the screen felt too bright, and the laughter track felt wrong. I waited for her to text me. She used to text me little updates, running late, be home soon, love you. Nothing came. An hour passed, then two. I checked my phone and realized I had not sent her anything either. Like part of me did not want to create a record of me being worried. I walked to the kitchen and looked at the clock like it would explain. I opened the fridge, closed it. I did things without purpose, because I did not want to admit what I was thinking. I did not want to give the thought a clear shape. When she finally came home, she was too calm. That is the only way I can describe it. Too even, like she had already decided how the conversation would go. She said it was a long talk. Her friend was going through something. She was tired. She was going to shower. She avoided my eyes just enough to be subtle. And I let it happen. I nodded. I said okay. And I hated myself for how easily I accepted it. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing patterns. She always picked evenings when I had an early meeting the next morning. She always left after I had already changed into comfortable clothes, like she wanted me rooted at home. She always came back with an energy that did not match the explanation. Not happy, not guilty, just awake, like she had been somewhere bright and alive. And then she would fall asleep fast, like she could switch off with a practiced move. One night, I asked again, "Where are you going?" And she gave me the same answer. "I am meeting my friend." And I said, "Which one?" And she said the same name, and something in me snapped quietly, not anger, not shouting, just a clean decision. I said, "Okay. I am going to check on her, just to see if she is all right. Because if she is going through something, maybe I can help." I said it lightly, like a supportive husband. My wife's face changed for half a second. Then she smiled, too quick, too controlled, and said, "No, it is private. She does not want anyone else involved." That answer made everything worse, because it was the first time she told me not to care. The next day while she was out, I stared at the contact in my phone. The friend's name, The friend I had met. The friend who had laughed at our wedding. I sat at my desk, and I hovered over the call button. I told myself it was just to check in. I told myself I was being considerate. I told myself this would settle my mind, and I would feel silly afterward. I called. She answered. She sounded normal. Busy. I asked how she was doing. She said fine. I said I was just checking in because my wife mentioned you. Had a lot going on. There was a pause. Then the friend said she had not seen my wife in a while. Not in weeks. Her voice was careful, like she was trying not to step on a landmine. I felt the room tilt. I held the phone tighter. I asked her to repeat it. She repeated it. And in that moment, I understood something clear and cold. I was being lied to, not in a careless way, not with a mistake, but in a planned way. I hung up. I sat there, and I stared at nothing. My hands were steady, but my stomach felt hollow. My first thought was that there must be an explanation that did not destroy my life. My second thought was that the explanation did not matter anymore, because she had chosen secrecy over honesty, and I had to stop letting fear make decisions for me. I looked around my own house, and it felt like a staged set, like furniture placed to look like a marriage. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, and it sounded loud, like the house itself was waiting for me to admit what I already knew. That night when she said she was going to see that same friend again, I did not argue. I did not ask extra questions. I nodded. I said drive safe, and I watched her leave. I waited 5 minutes so she would not see me move. Then I grabbed my keys and walked out into the dark. My neighborhood was quiet, porch lights glowing, sprinklers clicking somewhere. I kept my breathing slow. I told myself I was not following my wife like some kind of desperate man. I told myself I was confirming a fact so I could make a rational choice. I told myself I needed the truth, because truth is the only thing you can build a decision on. I stayed far enough back that her car looked like just another set of taillights. I did not rush. I did not try to catch up at red lights. I let distance protect me from being seen. She drove across town, not toward the area where her friend lived. She drove toward the highway. And as I followed, I felt a strange calm settle over me, because every turn she made answered questions she had refused to answer with words, and I realized my life was about to split into a before and an after. I did not know what I would find, but I knew I would not be able to unsee it. She took an exit near a cluster of restaurants and hotels, the kind of place people go when they do not want to be noticed. She pulled into a parking lot behind a building with dim lights. I parked farther away and sat in my car with my hands on the wheel, watching, waiting, trying to hear my own thoughts over the blood rushing in my ears. I saw her step out, adjust her hair, look around, like she was checking the world, like she was making sure no one from our life had followed her. Then she walked toward a door near the side entrance, and I watched a man open it for her like he had been waiting. He did not look like a stranger, not to her. She walked in close, too close, and the way she moved told me everything before I saw anything else. I sat there, and I did not move, because my body did not know what to do with what my eyes had just confirmed. And in the stillness of my car, I understood that the hardest part was not going to be catching her. The hardest part was going to be what I did next, because the truth was finally in front of me, and it was not going to disappear just because I wanted it to. I stayed in that parking lot longer than I should have, staring at the side door like it might open again and explain itself. My hands were still on the wheel, tight enough that my fingers hurt. I did not feel dramatic anger. I felt a slow, heavy certainty, the kind that makes your chest feel too small for your lungs. I told myself to leave, because if I walked up to that door, I would become a version of myself I did not recognize. I did not want a scene. I did not want shouting. I did not want to beg for honesty from someone who had already chosen silence. So I sat there and watched for a few minutes more, like I was collecting proof for my own mind, not for a court, not for revenge, just for the part of me that still wanted to believe I was wrong. A car pulled in 2 rows over. A couple got out. They laughed. They held hands. They walked inside without looking around. And that normal moment made me feel even more alone, because it reminded me that life keeps moving even when yours is breaking. I finally started my engine and drove away slowly. I did not follow her home. I did not want to pull into our driveway behind her like nothing happened. So I drove through quiet streets until my heartbeat stopped racing. I parked at a gas station and sat there with the bright lights overhead, staring at my phone. My wife had not texted me once, not a small update, not a simple lie typed out, nothing. And that emptiness felt like a message of its own. When I got home, she was not there yet. The house was dark and too quiet. I walked room to room like a guest, looking at the pictures on the walls, our faces smiling on beaches and in front of Christmas trees. I wondered how many of those smiles were real and how many were just habit. I stood in our bedroom and looked at her side of the closet. Then I looked at my side, and I realized something that surprised me. My first instinct was not to destroy anything. My first instinct was to protect myself, not my pride. Not my image, myself. The part of me that still had to wake up and go to work and pay bills and live inside this body. I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I did not search for dramatic answers. I searched for practical ones. I read about separation in our state, about finances, about what mattered and what did not. I looked at our bank accounts, our mortgage, our car payments, our insurance. I made a list of everything that tied us together, and the list was longer than I expected. I felt stupid for not knowing all the details by memory. I had trusted the marriage to hold it. I had trusted love to be the glue, and now I was realizing love is not paperwork. Love does not keep things safe when someone decides to break the rules. She came home after midnight. She walked in like she had rehearsed the sound of her keys, soft, careful. She kicked off her shoes and came toward me in the kitchen. She stopped when she saw me sitting there, the laptop open, the light from the screen on my face. For a second, she looked nervous. Then she put on that calm expression again and asked why I was up. I said I could not sleep. I asked if her friend was okay. She said yes. She said it was complicated. She said her friend needed support. The lie came out clean and smooth, like it had been waiting at the back of her tongue all day, and I nodded, not because I believed her, but because I wanted to see how far she would go if I gave her room. She asked if everything was all right with me. Her voice had a careful sweetness, like she was watching for cracks. I said I was fine. I asked if she wanted tea. She said no. She said she was exhausted. Then she leaned in and kissed my cheek again, and that small detail confirmed what I already knew. She did not want my mouth near hers. She did not want closeness. She wanted safety. She wanted the appearance of normal. She walked to the bedroom and closed the door, and I sat there listening to the soft sound of the shower turning on, the water running, and I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not jealousy, not rage, just disgust at how easy it was for her to step back into our life like nothing happened. The next morning she acted normal. She made coffee. She asked about my day. She mentioned a show she wanted to watch this weekend. She talked like the future still belonged to us. I watched her move around the kitchen, and I felt like I was watching an actor finish a scene. I kept my voice steady. I left for work like usual, and as soon as I got to my office, I did the one thing I had been avoiding. I called a lawyer, not because I wanted to punish her, but because I needed a map out of the fog. That first call was quiet and clinical. The lawyer asked basic questions: how long we were married, whether we had children, what our finances looked like. I answered in a calm voice that did not match what was happening inside me. And when the lawyer told me what steps to take, what documents to gather, what not to say, what not to do, I felt relief, because clear steps are something I understand. I can handle pain better when it has structure. Over the next few days, I started living two lives: the one my wife saw, polite, calm, ordinary, and the one she did not see, the one where I took screenshots of bank statements, copied insurance information, stored pay stubs, and checked credit reports. I changed passwords quietly, not all at once, just enough to protect myself. I opened a new account in my name. I redirected part of my direct deposit. I did it legally and carefully, following the advice I had been given. I hated that I had to think like that, but I hated even more that she had forced me to. She kept leaving at night, always with a simple excuse, always with that same friend's name. And each time she left, my chest tightened, not because I missed her, but because I could not understand how someone could look at me across a dinner table and still choose to lie. One evening she asked if I was angry at her, and I could tell she asked because she felt something shifting. I looked at her and said no, just tired. I watched her study my face like she was reading a report. Then she smiled and said I worked too hard. She told me she loved me, and I almost laughed at how easy the words sounded coming from her mouth. A week later, I did something I never imagined I would do. I put a small tracker in my own thoughts, not in her phone, not in her purse, just in my mind. I wrote down times, dates, excuses, because my lawyer told me documentation matters even if you think it does not, and because I wanted the truth to be solid, not emotional, not something she could later rewrite into a story where I was the problem. Then came the night she made a mistake. Not a big, obvious mistake, a small one. The kind that happens when someone gets comfortable lying. She left her phone on the kitchen counter when she went to shower, and it lit up with a message preview, just a name I did not recognize and two words that turned my stomach cold: miss you. And in that moment, I realized I was not just dealing with a betrayal in the present. I was dealing with a whole hidden life, and I still had no idea how deep it went. I did not pick up the phone. I did not read more than those two words, because I already had enough. The phone stayed on the counter like it was nothing, and I stepped away from it slowly. My heart was beating fast, but my head felt clear. I understood something important in that moment. I did not need more proof to know what I had to do, but I needed proof to protect myself later. So I waited. I let the screen go dark, and when she came back into the kitchen wrapped in a towel, she saw me standing by the window. She asked if everything was okay, and I said yes. Just thinking about work, she nodded like that answer fit neatly into the story she wanted to keep telling. That night, I did not sleep much, not because I was replaying images in my head, but because my mind kept running through future conversations, legal steps, logistics, how to leave without turning my life into chaos. I realized I was already emotionally detached. The pain had not disappeared, but it had turned into something sharper and quieter, like a line drawn in ink. I knew I would not confront her yet. Confrontation would only give her time to adjust her lies, to rewrite the narrative. I needed to move first. The next morning, I called my lawyer again and told him about the message. He told me to stay calm, to keep documenting, to avoid arguments, to avoid any behavior that could be twisted later. I listened carefully, because at this point my future depended on discipline, not emotion. When I hung up, I felt strange, like I was planning an exit from a building that was already on fire. At home, she acted warmer than usual. She cooked dinner. She laughed at small things. She touched my arm when she talked, and for the first time in weeks, she kissed me on the lips. Not long, not deeply, just enough to feel intentional. And that confused me more than her distance ever had, because I could see the calculation in it. Not cruelty, calculation, like she sensed the ground shifting and was trying to stabilize it. A few days later, I told her I would be traveling for work. It was a normal thing for my job. She did not question it. She even seemed relieved. She hugged me and told me to drive safe. And as I packed a small bag, I felt a strange sense of control return. Because this time I was the one choosing what she knew and what she did not. I did not leave town. I stayed nearby, in a cheap hotel, and that first night I sat on the edge of the bed listening to the air conditioner hum. Waiting, watching the hours pass. I checked my phone. No messages from her, not even a good night. And that absence felt louder than any argument we had ever had. The next evening she left the house again. And this time I followed from a distance I knew well. The routine was the same, the highway exit, the familiar parking lot. But this time I did not feel shock. I felt confirmation. I parked and waited. And when I saw her walk toward the same door, without hesitation, I knew this was not a mistake, not confusion, not a rough patch. It was a choice she was making over and over again. I took a photo, just one, not of anything dramatic, just her walking toward that entrance, proof of pattern, proof of intent, proof that she was living a life she had cut me out of. And as I sat there, I realized something that scared me more than losing my marriage. I realized that even if she begged, even if she cried, even if she promised change, the image of her choosing that door would never leave my mind. And I knew then that forgiveness was already slipping out of reach. I did not confront her after that night. I went back to the hotel and slept better than I had in weeks. Not because I felt peace, but because my mind had stopped arguing with reality. In the morning, I checked out and went to work like nothing had happened. I answered emails, sat in meetings, smiled when required. And I realized how easy it was to perform normal when you had already accepted the ending. When I got home that evening, she greeted me like always, asked about my trip, asked if I was tired, and I answered with simple words that gave her nothing to hold on to. Over the next month, I moved quietly. I followed every step my lawyer gave me. I gathered documents. I separated finances where I could. I removed personal items from shared spaces little by little so it would not be obvious. A jacket here, a box there, things she would not notice until later. She kept trying in small ways, cooking more often, planning weekends, talking about the future again, and I watched it with a strange distance, like I was observing weather patterns instead of a marriage. One night, she finally asked me directly if something was wrong. We were sitting across from each other at the table, the same table where I had once planned vacations and birthdays. She said I felt far away, that I was not looking at her the same way. And for a moment, I considered telling the truth right there. But then I remembered every lie she had told me without hesitation, and I chose silence. I told her I was stressed. I told her work was heavy, and she nodded like she understood, like she had permission to believe that version. A week later, I filed for divorce. I did it quietly, through my lawyer, no dramatic announcement, no argument, just papers delivered while she was at work. That evening she came home, confused and pale. She asked me what was happening. She asked me why I would do this without talking to her. And I looked at her and felt nothing but exhaustion. I told her I knew about the other life she was living. I told her I had known for a long time. And I told her I was done. She cried. She denied. She tried to explain. Then she apologized. The order changed every few minutes, like she was searching for the right combination to unlock me. But I stayed calm, because calm was the only thing I had left that was mine. I packed a bag that night and left the house we had built together. And as I closed the door behind me, I understood that the hardest part was over, not because the pain was gone, but because the decision was final. The weeks after I left felt unreal, like I was walking through someone else's life with my name on it. I stayed in a small rented place close to work, nothing personal on the walls, just clean space and quiet. She started calling the first night, then texting, then leaving long messages I did not answer. At first they were confused, then angry, then apologetic, then desperate. The pattern repeated the way habits do when someone does not know what else to try. She said she made a mistake. She said it did not mean anything. She said she was lonely. She said I worked too much. She said she never stopped loving me. Each message felt like it came from a different version of her, and none of them matched the woman who had looked away from me and walked through that door without hesitation. I listened to a few voicemails and stopped, because every word pulled at memories I was trying to place behind glass. The divorce process moved slowly. Paperwork, waiting periods, signatures. I focused on routine because routine kept me steady. Work in the morning, gym in the evening, simple meals, early nights. I rebuilt my days piece by piece. And in the quiet, I started noticing how much tension I had been carrying for years without realizing it. My shoulders felt lighter, my sleep deeper. The silence stopped feeling empty and started feeling clean. About 3 months after I left, she showed up at my door, unannounced, standing there like she had nowhere else to go. She looked smaller somehow, not physically, but emotionally. She asked if we could talk, just talk. She said she had ended everything. She said she would do anything to fix what she broke. I let her speak, because cutting her off would have felt cruel, and cruelty was not who I wanted to be. She cried. She apologized. She took responsibility in words. She told me she had spent weeks alone thinking about her choices, and for a moment I saw the woman I had once loved, the woman who laughed easily and believed in us. And that moment hurt more than anger ever could, because it reminded me that love does not disappear, it just becomes unusable. When she finished, she waited, watching my face for hope, for movement, for permission, and I told her the truth as calmly as I could. I told her that forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. I told her that even if I forgave her someday, I could never unlearn the version of her that chose deception over honesty. I told her I could not build a future on a foundation that had already collapsed once. She asked for time. She asked for patience. She asked if 2 years from now things could be different. And that was when I realized she was already planning the long game, already imagining a slow return, and I shook my head. I told her no, not now, not later, not ever. I told her the door was closed not out of anger but out of clarity. She left quietly, and when the door closed behind her, I did not feel relief or triumph. I felt something steadier, acceptance, the kind that does not celebrate but does not regret either. And I knew then that the hardest test was not leaving. It was staying gone. Time did not heal everything the way people like to say, but it did change the weight of it. Months passed, then a year, then another, and life kept offering chances to move forward whether I was ready or not. I focused on work and earned a promotion that came with more responsibility and better pay. I moved to a different neighborhood, one with less history attached to every street, and I learned how to enjoy my own company without filling every quiet moment with noise. She did not disappear from my life completely. She tried to stay present in small ways, a message on holidays, a check-in on my birthday, an update about something she thought I would care about. At first I responded politely, then less often, then not at all, not because I hated her, but because each reply reopened a door I had already closed, and I understood that boundaries are not punishments, they are protections. 2 years after the divorce, she reached out again, this time with a longer message. She said she had changed, that she had gone to therapy, that she finally understood why she did what she did. She said she was not asking to move back into my life immediately, just to talk, just to see if something was still there. Reading her words, I felt calm, not pulled, not tempted, just calm. And that was how I knew my answer. I replied once, carefully, honestly. I told her I was glad she had grown. I told her I hoped she found happiness. And I told her I could not be part of her future in any way. I wished her well and asked her not to contact me again. I did not argue. I did not explain further. I did not leave space for negotiation. After that, the messages stopped, and the silence felt final in a way. That was not heavy. It felt earned. I started dating slowly, without urgency, without comparing. I learned to trust my instincts instead of explaining them away. And I learned that love should feel safe, not confusing. Sometimes I think back to the man I was before everything fell apart, the one who believed effort alone could hold 2 people together. And I do not judge him. He did the best he could with what he knew. And because of that, I was able to become someone stronger, not harder, just clearer. I do not tell this story because I am proud of how it ended. I tell it because endings teach more than beginnings ever do. Today my life looks ordinary from the outside. Steady job, quiet evenings, plans that belong only to me. But inside it feels honest. There is no second guessing, No waiting for explanations, no knots in my stomach when a phone lights up late at night. I learned that trust is not something you negotiate after it is broken. It is something you either protect or lose. I learned that love does not survive on memories alone. It needs truth in the present, and I learned that walking away is not weakness when staying would cost you your self-respect. Sometimes people ask if I ever miss her, and the answer is complicated. I miss who I thought she was. I miss the future I believed we were building, but I do not miss the uncertainty. I do not miss the lies, and I do not miss the version of myself that accepted less than he deserved just to keep peace. There is a quiet strength that comes from choosing yourself without hatred, without revenge, without needing the other person to understand. I carry that strength with me now, into new relationships, into work, into everyday decisions. It reminds me to listen when something feels wrong, and to act before silence turns into regret. If there is one thing I know for sure now, it is this: forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation, and closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes closure is simply walking forward and refusing to look back, not because you are afraid of the past, but because you finally trust yourself enough to leave it there.